Welcome all. Welcome to Bravo 69. I want to thank everybody who's been continued even through the COVID. We've got a very strong membership, and we picked up some new members. So we've got some great events. The next event's going to be on the Topanga Symphony. So I hope you guys all take advantage of showing up at all the programs we do, because some of them are really great. I think this is a particularly special one in that we've got access to something that we normally wouldn't have, and that's Bravo 69 Fire Station. 69 Bravo, yeah. Let me do a little bit of business, because this is our annual election of the members. So if I could take 2 minutes, I'm just going to read the slate that's recommended for the board, and if everybody votes aye or nay, as the case may be. But I'll read the whole membership group first. This is who we're proposing for the next 22-23 season. Bill Berge, Gail McToon, Doug Hansen, Scott King, Teresa Hames, and Chris Von Wetter, Pablo Capra, Eric Dugdale, Joanna Gunst, Ryan Pastorek, new members Suzanne Goldeman and Peter York. York is a very familiar name in the Topanga Historical Society. It's been a number of years since we've had a York on the board, but we're happy that they've returned. And myself, Ed O'Neill. Could I get a quick vote, all in favor of this slate for the coming year? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Motion characters. Okay. So I'd like to introduce, we've got the Engine Company 69, and they're here today. And also we're lucky enough to have the battalion chief, Rick Lewis. And Doug Vencill is the captain of the fire station. They're both here. And so before you leave today, make sure you introduce yourself to Doug. So I'll ask Rick, would you like to come up and say a few words to the group?
Good morning. Thank you all for coming. My name is Rick Lewis. I'm the battalion chief for Battalion 5. For the C shift here, covers your area of Topanga, also covers into Malibu, Calabasas, Hidden Hills, Westlake, all the to the west of here as well. So just a little bit of background on some of you are very familiar, maybe even more familiar than myself, with some of the history of this helispot. It's a very unique helispot. It has some abilities that hardly any, if any, other facilities like this in the world would have. This began as a project in 2010 with the landowner Simon T, who's been really gracious to us, and now we are on a path of ownership for the county to own this land and to be able to secure it long term for the residents of Topanga and beyond. So I just made some notes, so forgive me for referring to those, but this facility is a totally self-contained facility, as in we have our Dept sites down there, which are those orange pumpkins that you see. Those are or can be filled with water, 8,000 gallons of water in a moment's notice. You also see these helipads up here where we can ground fill our helicopters or potentially pick up a patient here if we needed to fly out a trauma or a very sick patient or a very injured patient. It's got generators that will run all the automated facility, mechanical parts of this facility. We have monitors in there. In my office, which is in Agora, we have a monitor there, and I can see what's going on up here, and it gives me a 360 view, a camera that just goes round and round, and I look at it every morning. It gives me a great view of what the weather looks like in the battalion, what the visibility is, which affects what our copters can do when they do get responded or if they're needed. Also, we have an app that can run some of the automated systems up here at the helispot. So a couple of things that they can do. Obviously, you guys are familiar with the water dropping capabilities of our helicopters. And if you're not familiar with nationwide or worldwide, LA County was the first water dropping helicopters in the world to do that by air. It helps us not just when a fire is established and maybe, protecting areas, but probably one of the biggest advantages it gives us, certainly where we have this wildland urban interface, unlike anywhere in the world, we can get our copters filled up and on site and dropping water within a matter of minutes. Nowhere else has that ability. And then the advances that we've made with our Firehawks and other copters, and now we have a contract with Coulson. If you haven't heard of them, they are our helitankers, which are large helicopters that can drop up to 3,000 gallons at once, or they can drop in stages, and we can do a lot with that. We can work in conjunction with our hand crews on the ground and be putting fire out ahead of them for them to secure line and protect houses and things like that. So very unique. We have cooperational partnerships with our partners at LA City and Ventura County and Orange County, where all those copters, several of those helitankers that are on contract, if we get a significant fire here, all those resources can be brought to bear for our purposes and to protect life and property here. So while we have some unique and very challenging situations up here with the people that live here and the homes and everything that's involved, I think we're uniquely equipped, even around the world, very unique that we have these resources at our disposal to affect good outcomes. So since 2010, when all this started, we've dropped from this facility, filled up, and then dropped approximately 1.6 million gallons of water have been dropped from here. I mean, that's a significant achievement. Obviously, yeah, so that's a credit to the people involved who have set this up, and then our air resource program to be able to put that kind of resources onto a fire at a moment's notice. So like I said, this can also be used as a medic transport if anybody's injured in Topanga Canyon or beyond, radius around here. You see one of our copters in the distance right now. Hey, Doug, check on air to ground and make sure they weren't planning on wanting to do anything here. Yeah, duck. No, they're fine. So they won't land on you, I promise, but we're gonna make sure. Anyways, just some very unique resources, and like I said, if something was to happen in the canyon, somebody's injured or sick, we have some options down at the coast where we can land a copter a little further up in the canyon. This would be our primary spot, so we would pick somebody up at their home or wherever they're sick or injured and be able to drive them up here in an ambulance or other vehicle, and then be able to fly them out to facilities beyond UCLA. Generally be our first one, perhaps Northridge, things like that. So this gives us a lot of ability. So and then just speaking beyond the air program, as you guys know, we have all our evacuation zones in Topanga. There's been a lot of questions on that, like which way are we supposed to go? And we've been trying to relay the message that it's very dependent on where the fire starts and where it's going and the intensity of the fire. So we'll be attempting to get those messages out to you through our various technology programs, things like that will get the message out to you. If you're here, go south. If you're here, go north, and we'll let you know where the fire is. Some of you may or may not be aware that we recently, through a grant, acquired, I don't know the number, in the hundreds of those NOAA radios, alert radios, that we're going to be dispersing to residents in the area, and those are very unique. Will you be able to have those radios for you and have them on standby? And then if something was to happen, a natural disaster, obviously fires, hurricanes, floods, whatever it may be, those radios would then come on and wake you up, even to the point where they have little vibrating pads that would go under your pillow that would wake you up like that. So they're very unique like that. We're looking forward to getting those out to the residents, and that'll be over the coming months. So other than that, I'm going to turn this over to our engine company 69, and they're going to kind of walk you through what some of our operations look like when they're responded for a fire or any other sort of emergency. And when they're done, or after your presentation is done, feel free to come up to us, and we can answer whatever questions maybe we've left out there that haven't answered for you. And thank you all. Have a good day. Yes.
You want to talk about the 69 Bravo water app?
for smartphones?
I can ask one of the other gentlemen. That's not my area of expertise, but we'll see if you can get some questions answered for you. I think I may have a gentleman who'll be able to answer those questions for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Here's Captain Fascenelli from Fire Station 69. I think they were just going to 8, so I think they're posted up at Camp 8.
Good morning. Captain Fascenelli. I just promoted actually into Fire Station 69 here. So I've been here for about, thank you. So it's a unique place and ready to learn a lot about it. But today, again, Fire Engine 69, it consists of myself. We got Engineer Vencill Kicker. We got Firefighter Shanoa, and then Firefighter Kim. So we'll be the ones manning this helispot if there was something that happened today, if it needed to be manned at the time. Basically, our operation is if there's a fire in our area, we're going to come up. It's going to usually be 69s to 69 Bravo. This is like our first helispot we're going to use. We're going to come in, we're going to park up here, we're going to turn on our pumps and make sure our water's flowing right and the tanks are full, and we're going to work with the helicopters as they come down to fill, because we're going to get LA City, we're going to get our ships, LA County, and we're going to assist them in the filling operations as they needed. Our Blackhawks, they will usually snorkel, so they won't be landing as much. They'll be dipping out of these tanks that the pumpkins you see down below. As far as that goes, I'll have our engineer, Vencill Kicker, come on over and talk about the operation, because he'll be setting up most of that as far as how it works over here.
All right, good morning, guys. How are you doing? God, this is a terrible view, isn't it? God, I hate it. No, I'm just kidding. No, beautiful day here. Happy to be here and come out and talk to you guys today and educate you guys a little bit about our operations and about the capabilities that we have up here and the capabilities that this site gives us. We have roughly somewhere between 90 and 100 helispots in LA County that are geographically placed for all different types of fire stations. But rest assured, 69 Bravo, this is the gold standard. Departments from all over California will come here and see how this setup is. So, for this community, for our county, you want this here as a fireman on the ground doing suppression efforts. I want this because it allows our aircraft and other agencies' aircrafts to get in here and to quickly, effectively get water and safely as well, and then get it on the fire, and then in turn protecting your all's lives and then also your property, which is our mission as a department and as each individual engine company and a piece of equipment that we have on the ground. So just like Chief Lewis said and Captain Fascenelli, I'm going to reiterate some of the things that they said. We would respond up here depending on where the fire is in this area. Typically, if we have a response that's in our first in area, another engine company will come up here and start setting up the helispot operations, and I'll go a little bit into that for you guys to let you know how that works. The good news is if it is us responding, does everyone know where we're located on Topanga, Canyon Boulevard? Okay, yeah, so obviously just driving a car up here, it takes a little time, right? So safely and aggressively, we can get up here in about 10 to 12 minutes. The good news is we have usually a Firehawk right now that just flew by. You guys might have seen there over at Camp 8. If we have something that goes right away and they can actually load up a crew and actually they have water on the Hawk, they can get over here and there's actually water in the pumpkins after they drop the hand crew guys on the ground, where they can start they can start suppressing their suppressing efforts, getting water on the fire, and then get over here without us even being up here. So that's a great advantage to us. A lot of helisports within the county, they don't have the pumpkins, so there physically has to be an engine on the ground that's taking water and going to send water through a hose line, and we're on the ground filling. Actually, the helicopter will physically land and we'll fill it in that manner. So that being said, that's a great advantage of this. The Firehawks, the Sikorskis, they actually like to snorkel, so they'll fly over here, they'll drop their snorkel, they'll suck up water. They can hold up to around 1,000 gallons of water usually, based off of their payload and the crew that they have in their equipment, because not only do they respond to fire suppression, but they also do physical rescue and transport trauma patients, medical patients. So depending on their weight, they'll take somewhere around 700 gallons usually, not a full tank, and that's just to keep them safe, right? We also have the 412 Bells. Those aircraft will traditionally land, and we actually have to be here to fill them. Typically, you're going to have a Firehawk over at Camp 8, which is just right over the hill, and they'll be able to snorkel. And then just as the chief and captain mentioned, we do have contract aircraft, and we have the big Chinooks. I'm sure you've seen on TV. They're the 2-prop helicopters, giant. They hold around 3,000 gallons of water. We can fill them by the ground as well, but they like to snorkel as well. The liability of landing an aircraft like that, is, a lot can go wrong on takeoff and landing, and a lot of it's like crew safety and everybody's safety, right? That's paramount. And then if something happens there, then we're not able to do our job for you guys as a community. So, again, we have the ability to do that. Believe it or not, if you guys walk around the facility, which I'm sure you'll get to do after this, I say this is firefighter friendly. Literally, you can walk over here and read these directions, and if you have the key to get in there, anyone could set this up, which is nice to get it initially set up to feed water to the pumpkins down there, the water source that they'll be snorkeling out of. So we're able to turn on a hydrant and essentially fill this big 10,000 gallon tank back there, and then it gravity feeds down there and will supply water to those pumpkins down there. I believe there's 4 pumpkins down there. Those have evolved over the years. They used to be actually kind of set up pumpkins. Now they're actual tanks where, they're there. They have a check valve in them. They're not going to overflow as long as there's no water there, but they know when to fill and when not to fill. But we have to assure that 10,000 gallon tank is that filled with water, so we can continually fill those. And as the aircraft comes in, they're able to snorkel. In the event we have to fill the aircraft by ground, we have a couple different methods. I won't go into those details, but essentially we'll come up here. We have a water source. We have our engine here. We will actually hook a hose from that hydrant to the engine, and then we'll have hose lines going down here to the helipad here, and it will allow us to be able to, for the helicopters, whether it be from LA City, our agency, or any other agency, to land, and we will physically fill those aircraft with water. And, I know during the Palisades fire, if you guys remember that last year, I was over in the state park on that fire, and we utilized this. I mean, this was so quintessential and putting out that fire over there, along with fixed wing aircraft and our ground efforts down there. But the aircraft, they are paramount to putting out brush fires in this area and to supporting the ground crews and keeping everybody safe out there. So we're really fortunate to have this helispot and happy to share it with you guys today, and happy to serve you guys and this community. So I know that's a lot really quick. I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions. There's some individuals here that know a little bit more about how this thing was created, built, but we're happy to get to utilize it. So thank you guys for coming out today. And then if you guys have any questions, we'll be here to answer those for you.
Hey Ed, you want to talk about the 69 Bravo water app for cell phones?
Yeah.
If you don't, I can.
Okay, so we have a couple other people here today. James Grasso is president of T-CEP. He's the head of CERT, and he does Malibu Search and Rescue. Do I have that right? Yes. Great. Could you come up for a minute and just tell us maybe a little bit about T-CEP? Maybe if you know some of the history of how Simon T. developed this site. Anything on that would be terrific. Very good. Thank you.
Hi, James Grasso. I recognize a lot of people here, and I could talk for hours about this place, but I'm not going to. We're extremely thankful to have this place. It's a godsend up here. We always say that LA County Fire can handle almost any fire as long as the winds aren't blowing, and because of this place up here, that makes it realistic that even then they can deal with it. Edison also, SC Edison, we're thankful for because they bring in 3 Chinooks, 3,000-gallon water carrying capacity Chinooks during the fire season, and I'm sure most of you know the number of fires that we've had here that you barely remember because they were put out so quickly. And that's a big thank to, of course, the fire department, but the aerial assets that we have up here. So Simon T., who owns this property or is in the process of transferring it over to the fire department, it's a 7-year contract, and at the 7th year, the county will take full ownership of the property over. But it is an amazing facility. As mentioned, there are 4 8,000-gallon tanks down below. There's a massive water main that comes up onto the property. There's a well that keeps a 10,000-gallon tank in reserve behind us, and it's truly automated. So there's been a lot of questions about the app. There is an app. There's a variety of different versions of it, and anyone in the public can download that app at 69bravo.com, and you can go to your favorite app store to load it. There's different versions, and so a helicopter pilot, when he comes into this place, especially at night, there's a number of things he can do off of the app. He can turn the landing lights on. He can turn... Sorry? He or she will. There's also a light on top of the windsock that goes on. There's a variety of other things they can do, like in a perfect world, this kicks up a lot of dust and makes it very difficult. So there's sprinklers, and be careful as you're walking around, but the helicopter operator can also turn the sprinklers on and wet the pad down so that it does not, in advance, so that it does not create dust. And so what else can I tell you about that? So you can download that app, and of course it has cameras up there. I think there's 5 stationary cameras and 1 360-degree rotating camera. There's also 4 special cameras up there. They're by Scripps Oceanographic Institute. They're known as HP-REN, and those cameras are in a beta program, and what they do is they can actually sniff out fire, and they can, currently, there's cameras all over the state. There's, I think, 7 of them in Topanga, and you can go onto a site called Alert Wildfire, and you can look at those cameras during a fire or when you think there's a fire, and you can view those. The state has people that watch those cameras, but unfortunately, they have to sit there and watch them all the time. These cameras are on the verge of being able to determine if there's a fire, and if it is indeed an actual fire, it will send an alert out. And so there's 4 of those cameras up there currently, and they were testing them on, after the Palisades fire, they were picking out reignitions of fires on the side of the hill. And if you can find that site online, you can see where it boxes out and it recognizes that there was a startup of it. What else can I tell you about this site? Completely and totally automated. So while the firefighters will come up and man it, this mountain can run by itself. They talked about the backup systems that are here. Those pumpkins, and the reason they were called pumpkins, the original ones were rubber tanks, and they look like a giant orange pumpkin. And there were some problems with them leaking and whatnot, and so Simon had upgraded them to the steel tanks that are there now. There were problems with wildlife trying to climb into the tanks, so we put a smaller tank down there so that was wildlife friendly so they could get into it as well. So if that tank starts leaking, the app will recognize, the system will recognize that it's leaking. It will shut the water off. It will wait a predetermined amount of time. Then it will turn itself back on, and it will fill the tank. And if it recognizes that it's leaking again, it'll do that twice. And after that, it will send off an alarm, but it recognizes that it's leaking, and it will stop trying to fill the tank to waste the water. What else? T-CEP has a number of radios and repeaters up here, and it's instrumental for our communications throughout Topanga. For those who are familiar with us, a lot of the information we send out, especially during PSPS when the power is going to be down, this is our top of the hour. This is where we transmit that from. What else can I tell you about it?
What's the best way to get in touch of what's going on in the case of an event? Where should they be listening to, or do you have a website they watch?
Well, of course, you should. You mean if there's, say, a wildfire breaks out and you need information about it? Right. Well, the standard places to go, of course, would be to sign up with the county, Alert LA, and that's the code red system, and that's a reverse 911. They don't like calling it a reverse 911, but it is a reverse system that will notify you. Also, the fire department doesn't use it any longer, but LA Sheriff's Department uses Nixle, and if you text, it's 888-777, and that will sign you up for the Nixle account. Like I say, fire doesn't use it any longer, but the Sheriff's Department does. T-CEP, of course, pushes out on our website. We have something known as the ESP, we call it. It's the emergency status page. And during an incident, we usually have someone at the command post pulling information there. But we will try to keep, and we do a pretty good job of keeping posted all the latest in terms of fire front, evacuation orders, and things of that nature. Also, it's 90290, T-CEP at 90290 is the Twitter feed, and so that will actually push out to you. And so almost the same things you get on the ES page, you'll get pushed out to you there as well.
Pulse Point?
Pulse Point is a great app, but the problem with Pulse Point is if you're going to use Pulse Point, you really ought to consider using Confirmed. You get a choice. You get to choose who you want to listen to. Of course, it would be Division 7. You get to choose who you can listen to, but the problem is, and Fire will tell you, they go out on dozens and dozens of calls all the time, and they find nothing. You're not going to know that. You're going to get an alert that says vegetation fire, and you're not going to have any idea what's happening with that vegetation fire. So if you're going to use Pulse Point, and it is a great app.
I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. So I want you to come back. I just arranged for one of our helicopters to come do a little courtesy flyby since they are in the area. So you'll get a good look at one of our Firehawks here coming right over us. Yeah, yeah.
Did you pull them off of Camp 8?
So they come out here and deliver crews in the morning, and so yeah, we saw them inbound to Camp 8. Now they were headed back to Barton Heliport in the valley. Yeah. Here I thought I was going to be the highlight of the day.
Have to compete with the birds. Well, he could have dropped water.
Yeah, I've been watching those for 15 years, and that never gets old for me either. So, anyways, yeah, that's one of our Firehawks. And again, just those are a unique helicopter. And now, I don't know if you've seen the news in the last 6 months. Now, Cal Fire has taken our lead, giving us no credit, of course. But now they're using those Firehawk. They've outfitted Firehawks as well. They're starting to be used across the state. So they're excellent apparatus. Sir, sorry to interrupt. No.
What was that question?
Do you know the size of this property?
Oh, I think it's 34, I believe. 34, I believe it is. So if you're going to use Pulse Point, I would highly recommend that you do Confirmed. If you're going to just pay attention to vegetation fires, you should do Confirmed, because at least at that point, you know that it's a real fire. It's still not going to tell you if it's a 100-foot by 100-foot patch and it's been knocked down in 10 minutes. You will eventually see the scroll stop and you know the event has ended. It's a great way to be alerted and then to tune into another area in order to find out what's going on.
I wanted to just mention KNX too, because up here we have our electricity shut off so much. So if you have a car radio, you can get in, and they usually are great about
KNX is great. We've met with them. T-CEP went down to their offices to try to get them on board. There's sometimes, unless it's a huge fire, they're sometimes a little slow in getting on it, but when they do get on it, they are a great source of information. And during the PSPS, when the power is down, I'm sure folks remember this Thanksgiving, we lost power for 30 hours. And during the Woolsey, we lost power for almost 30 hours as well. That was not a PSPS, but we can remember what it was like not knowing what was going on with that fire and not having any way to communicate. So KNX, when you lose power, you have a battery and you have a generator in your car, and you can turn the radio on and you can listen there.
Can you put all those apps and everything on the T-CEP website?
Yes, we actually have a variety of handouts that I think are already on there, but yes. And also ways you can back up your phone system, because in Topanga, of course, when the power goes down, we don't have cell phone towers. We have micro repeaters, and they're all on the poles. And when the power goes down, there's no backup for those. And so there's also a variety of ways you can back up your home system, because if you have Frontier, that also is power dependent. And so you'll need to back that up as well. And so we have listed a variety of different ways from 2 hours to 10 days that you could back up your systems.
How about FRS 15?
FRS 15, what that is T-CEP, when power goes down, what we do is, since there's no real forms of communication, what T-CEP does, we have something called the top of the hour report. And so what we do is on channel 15, FRS, GMRS radios, on channel 15, we have a couple of repeaters around the canyon. And so what happens is we will push out at the top of the hour the latest information we have about the incident, what's going on with it, if there's evacuations taking place, et cetera, et cetera. It's a listen-only channel. You never talk on it because you will cut it out for your neighbors. We've broken up to, I'm sure you're all familiar with the Topanga Disaster Survival Guide. T-CEP worked with the county way back in the early 2000s through the Topanga Emergency Management Task Force. We created the Topanga Disaster Survival Guide, and we created the evacuation zones that have now just been implemented by the fire department for all of the Santa Monica Mountains, and it's expanding beyond there. And so the idea behind the top of the hour report is, if you look in that guide, you will see every neighborhood is broken into its own specific FRS channel. That's for you to talk to with your neighbors. You go to channel 15 at the top of the hour, you listen to the report, and then you switch when the report's over to your local channel, and then you can talk to your neighbors on those channels to pass along the information. And that will pretty much be only when the power goes out, because, as you can imagine, it's tough to staff somebody every hour, on the hour, around the clock. Yes?
Put in a plug for ham radios. Getting your ham radio license.
Of course, ham radios are great, and if you don't know Norm Goodkin, just look up Norm Goodkin, and you will find he does hundreds of people every month. He's got a great system in place. It's very simple. You can learn as much as you want to learn, and you can ignore it all and just learn how to operate the radio. But he makes it very simple online. If you Google his name, you'll find access to his program. Any other questions? Thank you.
Robert Kagan of the Saddle Peak Homeowners Association wanted to say a few words. Robert?
Just briefly, I'm the new president of the Saddle Peak Property Owners Association. Peter Banner was our past president. Unfortunately, he passed last year. Okay. Peter Banner unfortunately passed last year. He was a great volunteer for a variety of these groups, CERT, and I think he worked with T-CEP and other groups. In any event, I very much wanted to thank the fire department and the sheriff's department. I've lived up here for 60 years. I've seen a few fires and have been bombed by the Phos-Chek a few times. And just to reassure you, it's easily washed off. But you guys do an incredible job, and I just want to thank you for that.
And finally, Scott King, our own board member, is a member of Arson Watch. We have a couple people from Arson Watch, and maybe you'd like to say a few words, and we'll conclude with this.
Sure. All right, thank you all for coming today. Appreciate that, and hopefully you will too, seeing this amazing facility. A bit about Arson Watch. We're doing before that, we're doing kind of a unusual hybrid meeting and field trip today with the Historical Society and also the fire department. And so as long as we're here about fire, I wanted to say a couple things. Arson Watch is a volunteer organization with the LA County Sheriff, and we get vetted through the Sheriff's Department, and we go out on red flag days and patrol various specified routes throughout the Santa Monica Mountains. We've got a team in Malibu. We've got a team here in Topanga. We used to have a team. We still up in Box Canyon area? No, okay. So basically Topanga and Malibu. And we are really looking for volunteers. So if you would like to serve your community and go out and look for fires, we also talk to people who may be smoking in the weeds, watching a fire. That's happened. And people running weed whackers without proper fire suppression equipment on red flag days, and we have to talk to them. Mostly we just keep our eyes out and our ears open, and we drive around with signs on our vehicles, advertising the fact that we're out here. We have signs throughout the canyon. Maybe some of you have seen that. And so it's arsonwatch.org or info. Info@arsonwatch.com. Info@arsonwatch.com is our portal to get in. If you want to volunteer, send an email to that and you can get more information. This is Will. Go to the website, he says. Why am I up here? Everything I say. This is Will Carey. He's our Arson Watch lead for Topanga. And So, okay, website,
ArsonWatch.com.
arsonwatch.com. And please, if you have any interest in volunteering, we'd just love to have you. The commitment officially is 30 hours per year, which isn't too hard to get to. There's a lot of red flag days that we have in the fall typically, so it's not hard to get to that, and it's not a huge effort, except it's a huge thing to have people out there looking for fires. One last thing I'd like to say, just a personal plug. I don't think it gets mentioned enough. For absolute instant information on what's happening with a fire in real time, a scanner. And you have, ham radio was mentioned. You have to have a little bit of savvy to run a scanner, not much. It's a listen-only thing. It's a radio about the size that the guys are wearing on their belt, little battery-operated radio, so it's good when the power's down, and you can hear the fire guys talking about the fire in real time as they're there doing their work. And you'll hear things like, we're releasing assets, which is always a good thing, or send more people, which is not a good thing, and stuff like that. So, you don't have to know a lot of jargon to understand basically what's happening. So, anyway, that's...
Mentioned that the cameras are all accessible.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. The 69 Bravo website, I've got one on my phone called 69 Bravo Water, which I find works real well. It's got the 360-degree camera, and there's a whole bunch of cameras.
All the cameras that James talked about, you can access from our website.
From arsonwatch.org or .com. So.
Good job.
It's a live show, folks. Whoops. And I'm the sound guy, you can tell, right?
Okay, so that concludes the program, but if you walk back and look down the canyon, you'll see the amazing perspective they have when they are up here looking at where the fire's coming from, where it's going to. If they're kind enough maybe to just open the door, you can't go in, but peer into that container there. It's pretty impressive. It's like a control center there with a lot of computers and monitors and cameras. Really impressive. So thanks again to the fire department and everybody who came today. Thank you.